Part 68. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 672. Quite unconscious, as he was about to reach home, South Dakota grabbed Sugu. "You can buy whatever you want to eat without asking me." "No," I asked the Admiral what he would like to eat. As the Commander-in-Chief, South Dakota actually cares about Sugu, but he often doesn't know how to care for people, otherwise he will be clueless and do bad things with good intentions. She had eaten and drank enough on the cruise ship at noon. She used to like snacks when she was a child, but now Sugu doesn't have much interest. "I don't have to." Seeing South Dakota say oh and trying to run away, Sugu patted the girl on the shoulder, indicating that she should ask everyone what they needed, not just herself. South Dakota still has a good character and is not reluctant. She just asked around, and Akage nodded. Washington said to Sugu, "The Admiral is too spoiled to her." It's okay in Sugu's mind, the ship girls have paid too much. As an admiral, he should satisfy them as much as he can. It doesn't matter if he is tired. Washington shook his head, and South Dakota came back quickly, leaving a small bucket of popcorn, and then gave Akage a large bucket. Regardless of the dignified image, Akage walked around and ate as if there was no one around. She was holding the bucket like a child. It would be better if she changed into a youthful and beautiful white dress. South Dakota walked to Sugu. She picked up the small bucket of popcorn and shouted, "Admiral." There was really no interest, but Sugu still grabbed a handful. South Dakota approached Sheng Sheng again, and she said, Maid. Reputation smiles, she is even less interested in these. "Whatever the maid wants to eat, I'll buy it for you. If you want to ask me anything, just tell me directly." As an outstanding head maid, the most basic ability is to observe people's emotions. Coming out of the office, South Dakota knew the next task. "I thought I would go out with Washington again, but nothing good would happen every time. If you can't be with the Admiral, what's the point of going out? It's better to sleep in the governor's mansion. You can also squeeze North Carolina's face every day, ride around in a small car, enjoy Yuxian's delicious food, and discuss with others how the Admiral is doing, and live a happy life." South Dakota looked around and whispered, Maid, let's change. You attack instead of me, and I take care of the Admiral instead of you. Everyone needs to attack, except Reputation. She is a personal maid, and she is taking care of Sugu during this trip. Even in the middle of summer, she still wears a maid outfit and doesn't care whether it's hot or not. Putting her hands on her apron, she asked, "South Dakota, can you do laundry?" South Dakota nodded repeatedly, "Yes, just put the clothes in the bucket, fill it with water, pour in the washing powder, and then stir the water." With such a funny speech and no complaints about her reputation, she continued to ask, "Can you make snacks?" This time South Dakota put it bluntly, "No." Missouri liked to cause trouble, so she put her arm around South Dakota's shoulders from behind. "South Dakota, even if you know how to do all the housework, you can't replace your reputation." South Dakota asked curiously, "Why? You're not a wedding ship, you can't warm the bed." Missouri smiled. "I have a ring and I am a wedding ship." Letting go of South Dakota, Missouri shrugged and slowed her pace. "What, is there something wrong?" South Dakota looked at the reputation, and the head maid smiled. She looked pitifully at Helena again, and Helena walked away. Unable to bear it anymore, she raised her left hand to reveal the ring. "You have the ring, I am the wedding ship, you believe me?" Washington smiled brightly and said, "I touch my head and express my condolences." South Dakota glared at Washington, and she quickly went to pull Sugu's clothes with tears in her eyes. Sugu said, Yes, South Dakota has a ring." South Dakota was happy immediately, and Washington sighed, thinking how pitiful he could only get this kind of answer that didn't answer the question. After everyone walked half the street, Missouri said, "Mr. Su, have you seen that store?" Sugu followed Missouri's gaze and looked over. It seemed to be a small milk tea shop. "Pay attention to that boss." "What's wrong?" She had long flaxen hair and was obviously a ship girl. She was very beautiful. Missouri looked serious. "You disappoint me so much. Your wife doesn't even know you." Even though he knew that Ship Niang would not get sick, Sugu wanted to touch Missouri's forehead to see if he had a fever. "Is your wife Lexington?" "There are many wedding ships, but MRS is just a title for a person in Lexington." "Lexington is there," Missouri continued. After a moment of sluggishness, Sugu came to his senses. "Missouri means, the owner of that milk tea shop is Lexington." No different than in the game, it is quite difficult to obtain any aircraft carrier here, and Lexington is no exception. However, the world is such a big place that it is not uncommon for several Lexingtons to appear. Even though they were both Lexingtons, Sugu didn't feel much other than curiosity. After all, everyone was different and every ship girl was unique. "It's actually Lexington. She doesn't look like someone's ship girl. She's so lucky." Everyone has different looks and personalities, but Lexington definitely has the attributes of a wife, and I don't know how many people dream of it. If you're a boss here and not in the town hall, you definitely don't have an admiral. Sugu didn't think much about it. Lexington is a very powerful aircraft carrier, why not absorb it into the combat team? Our combat team is not Liangshan. If you meet a powerful person, you have to earn a lot of money. Whether you come or not is entirely up to you. There is one thing that Missouri likes to do in the garrison, which is forcing Xiaozai to listen to Sugu telling stories, but he still listens to it with gusto every time. Of course she has heard of water margin, and she can also tell a story about Bismarck punching Sekhat. "Consultant Su, why did you go to open a store in a place like this?" Actually, she used to work in the command team, and her position was not low. Why she resigned and opened a milk tea shop, I don't know. However, her milk tea shop has always been operating at a loss, because destroyers never charge money for milk tea, and the same goes for ice cream. It feels so loving. Do you have any plans to fish her out? I already have Lexington. It doesn't matter if you have it. There is nothing we can do about the construction. Let's forget about it. I want to bring another Lexington back to the town hall. I don't want to soak it in formaldehyde. Wife discipline. I will tell Lexington what you advised me to do to fish for Lexington." Missouri immediately showed weakness. "Don't." Everyone carried their luggage and walked home with Dumpling Essex. The entire frontline general base was really not big. From a visual inspection, there is only one street, and it looks like it covers an area similar to that of a larger university. It didn't take long to reach the destination, which was a small building next to a large store. In front of the door was a large banyan tree with pavilions like a canopy. There was a swing under the tree, and birds were landing on it. "Admiral, everyone is staying here." Essex acted like the hostess. Pushing the door open and walking through the entrance hall, the hall was empty. Sugu already knew that the Colorado sisters were not at home, but where was the promised little Loli? Looking for the lost ship girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 673. There is a large naval academy in Chuangziu, which specializes in training admirals and shipwives. With the naval academy as its center, the deserted island developed into a large city. Moving forward to the main base, there is a primary school here. The European admirals stationed in the front-line garrison can always get new ship girls regardless of whether they build or salvage ships. Besides, countless deep-sea ship girls have sunk, and there have always been many ship girls who woke up on their own at sea. However, no matter you are a cute little loli or a beautiful lady, no one is born great as a new ship girl. In the sea area near the mainland, New ship girls can go to the battlefield after a short period of learning, and there is no need to worry too much about encountering danger. This is the depth of the sea, and it is easy to sink without a certain amount of strength. This requires learning, and the requirements for becoming a master are quite strict. The pinnacle of Europeans is called the European Emperor. Even for the European Emperor, it is common to build destroyers. It is better to say that it cannot even build a destroyer, which is really not worthy of its name. Not to mention that the destroyers are so cute, for them countless admirals would not hesitate to join the military police. Capital ships have high damage and high consumption. Destroyers have low damage and can only exert their full power in night battles, but their consumption is low. If the capital ship is a high-level construction, then the destroyer is the lower-level foundation. Both are indispensable, without which no one can be called a European. This is a territory specially designated for destroyers in the elementary school. The instructor is a girl with shoulder-length blonde hair. Judging from the ship uniform she is carrying, it is obvious that she is the light cruiser USS Omaha. Being able to serve as an instructor requires a lot of strength. He usually has an innocent personality, but becomes serious and majestic when wielding a pointer. At this time, the little brown-haired girl in a skirt was standing on the sea, staring at Omaha. With an order from Omaha, she began to move forward on the sea. One after another, they walked around the oil drums floating on the sea, and then raised the naval gun in their hands high to aim at the floating target in the distance. A series of data such as distance, angle, trajectory, etc. flashed through her mind. In fact, she was not that powerful, and she mostly relied on feeling to aim. Anyway, she pulled the trigger, and the fire flashed from the barrel and landed not far from the floating target, splashing a huge water column. Omaha said loudly, "Hillman, not qualified. The dodge is okay, but the artillery hit is terrible." Depressed, Hillman returned to the pier and sat down. There were many little Lolita there with their legs dangling in the air. A little girl smiled and said, "Hillman, you failed again, so rude. Why do our destroyers practice bombardment? It would be nice to have torpedoes. Those slow battleships can't avoid them at all." Hillman complained that it was just that the school advocated the comprehensive development of morality, intelligence, physical education, art, and labor. Even if the destroyer mainly relied on the ability of lightning strikes, artillery strikes could not be missed. The little girl added, "You're not very powerful at lightning strikes. You just throw all the torpedoes out at once without knowing how to aim. You're so annoying. Stop talking. Don't anger me. I'm very fierce when I'm angry and I'll even hit people, of course." Hillman was just saying that. The ability test was not over yet, and Omaha continued to shout, "Come on, Zaidaki. Hurry up, don't delay or dawdle. Ah Huang, if you get 100 points in the test, we'll go have ice cream in the afternoon, and you'll treat us." However, Zilihao's performance was not ideal, let alone 100%, he did not even pass. Whether it is a destroyer that has just woken up or a destroyer that has been studying in the academy for a long time. In order to avoid wastage of teachers, in fact, it is not necessary, since everyone is studying together. In the case of tests, each person's performance standards are judged based on their learning progress. 11 Li was considered very powerful among the other little Lolita. She easily dodged the oil barrel and accurately hit the floating target with the shelling. However, in Omaha's eyes it's not enough, there are still too many flaws in the details, and it needs to be worked on. After a lot of testing, only the last person was left, a student with the most difficult problem. Omaha walked over to a brown-haired girl, who was sitting on the ground with her legs crossed and her arms folded across her chest. The expression on his face was one of deep contemplation, and he was obviously worried about the large pile of messy parts placed in front of him. "Mahan, what are you doing?" Omaha asked angrily. "Alfred fell apart, and I could never sail the seas again without him." Many ship girls rely on the sailing feat of their ships to sail on the sea. There are always some special ship girls, such as Mahan and Cushing, who rely on unique sea transportation. Alfred Mahan relied on it to sail the seas. Omaha asked, "Why did Alfred fall apart?" Mahan held his chin and nodded thoughtfully, "Because I removed it." Omaha was stunned for a moment, and she asked, "Why did you dismantle Alfred? Isn't that your favorite scooter?" This must not be confused. Mahan shouted, "It's not a scooter, Alfred is a motorcycle." "Okay, scooter, isn't that your favorite scooter? Why did you dismantle it?" Mahan said, "I want to make it look like Transformers." Thinking about transforming the small motorcycle into a transformer, Omaha felt that he couldn't keep up with the girl's rhythm. She took a deep breath, determined not to be curious, and said, "Mahan, it's your turn to play. Alfred is broken." Mahan can pretend to be Alfred. A little lowly said beside her that Omaha herself knew this, so she asked Mahan to play. Seeing Omaha's face becoming more and more gloomy, Mahan quickly started to assemble his own motorcycle. She moved quickly, obviously having done this many times, and she was finished quickly. Mahan pushed the scooter toward the beach, but Omaha kept looking more and more wrong. Why were there two extra parts on the ground, and the position of the scooter's propeller was completely wrong? Even a layman like her could tell. She quickly asked, "Mahan, please check again to see if there are any assembly errors." "Okay, how could I pretend to be my best friend Alfred?" Mahan pushed the cart into the water, and then, capsized. This is a classroom where the theoretical knowledge of combat and cultural classes are taught again. It is currently the break time. There were many little Lolita playing around, and there was also a slim girl like Street who was looking out the window with her chin in her hands and a look of distress on her face. "Why is he a destroyer? I have to take lessons with a group of little Lolita. It would be great if I was a light cruiser." After changing into dry clothes, Mahan was lying on the desk writing and drawing, with a three-dimensional view under his pencil. In front of her, a little lowly turned back, "Mahan, what are you drawing?" Mahan raised his head, "Walk Erland, I want to assemble Alfred into a transformer. Here are the drawings." "You haven't given up on that unrealistic idea yet?" Mahan said angrily, "I can finish it next week." "It will be finished next week, Mahan, you said it many times. You don't trust me and you hurt my heart. We won't finish the work next week." Walk Erland likes to play with Mahan, and riding a scooter together is the most fun. It would be boring if Alfred was always reduced to parts. But Mahan fell into a daze, which made people become distressed. She frowned and thought for a while, "Otherwise, we'd better ask an adult for help. We definitely won't be able to do such a complicated thing." Mahan said, "They don't understand." "Don't you understand any of them?" "There is someone who understands, but I don't know where he went." "Who is that?" "Sister Yuberry, she knows this best." After studying together for such a long time, Walk Erland understood that Mahan probably didn't know any Yuberry, so she asked, "There is no Yuberry among your sisters, right?" Mahan put down the pencil. He had no strength left. He lay down on the table and put his face on the table. "What do you know? What kind of sister do I need? I used to work in a very big town guard house." Waklan pouted, she didn't believe it. After a while, she added, "Let's explore the haunted house tonight. There are many abandoned buildings in the base, which are not safe, but destroyers like to play there. No one can stop them, and the locks can be easily broken even if they are locked." In order to prevent little Lolita from going casually, many ghost stories were spread. There was a period of time called the Dark Ages. Admirals didn't like destroyers, so they imprisoned them in abandoned buildings. At that time, abandoned buildings were also called dismantling rooms and slaughterhouses. They hung the destroyed destroyer upside down with hooks, cut off all its hands and feet, conducted dark steel making, and then used the corpse to awaken new ship girls. It is said that there are still sounds from time to time. Everyone, run away and don't come here. Mahan is not afraid of haunted houses, but she has other reasons why she doesn't want to go. She said, the school is so far from home. Most of the destroyers studied in the school were sent by the nearby garrison. After all, the front-line garrison is usually very busy and does not have that much time to educate destroyers, and the level of education is not as good as that of schools. In short, everyone sent the destroyer to school, boarding system. Then every week I have a holiday, and then I'll be taken back to the guard mansion. It's just like Mahan, his home is within the base, he leaves early and comes back late every day. Walker Erland said, you don't want to live on campus. Why don't you live on campus? In terms of eloquence, Waklan is no match for Mahan. Mahan said, why do you want to live in the school? It would be great if we could all be happy together. Doesn't your admiral dislike you if he sends you to school? As a ship girl, she likes the admiral the most, and Vauquelin is no exception. Her expression suddenly became panicked. Of course the admiral likes me the most. Shhhhhhh, I don't believe it. Mahan blinked. Do you want me to teach you how to please the admiral? Walker Erland was a little arrogant. I don't need anyone to like me, I don't care. Mahan said, let me think about it. First of all, you must learn to sneak into the admiral's quilt at night. Your figure is not bad, but you have less fat. So, don't dress like a child, dress like an adult in front of the admiral. You must learn to wear black stockings, and wear clothes that are a little revealing to expose your belly, and preferably your breasts. Vauquelin said, if you expose your breasts, you will join the gendarmerie and be scolded by your sister who is in charge of discipline. Then just show half of it. Mahan, shut up. Suddenly a little loli rushed over. She and the Walker Erland family were guarding the mansion. Seeing that her companion was about to be bewitched by Mahan, she quickly stopped him. She slapped Mahan's desk angrily again, you porn destroyer. The recess time didn't last long. Classes started soon and soon ended in the afternoon. Mahan walked out of the college with a small school bag on her back. She walked on the street, humming a tune, I have a small motorcycle, and I never ride it. One day, I rode it on a whim to go out. I held the handlebar in my hand. I was feeling very proud. Somehow, I fell into the sea. Pushing the cart, humming again, buying a piece of bread on the roadside, and eating the bread, Mahan soon arrived home, but unexpectedly saw that the door of his house had been opened. I obviously remembered to lock it in the morning, but usually everyone comes back later than me. Just as she was wondering, Mahan saw a bald eagle flying in the sky. Surprise flashed across her face, and she shouted, Belmaken. She snickered, thinking that Sister Dumpling was back. I have been back home for a while, and Sugu is looking through everyone's photo albums. Even though the Admiral is no longer around, life must go on. It is said that West Virginia has also grown up. I don't know what has changed. Anyway, the people in the photos are very beautiful. Maryland has sassy short hair, but her breasts are really thin compared to her older sisters. But the sharp eyes and thin lips have a fatal charm. What people are most concerned about is Colorado. The figure in the photo is really great. While looking at the photos, Sugu also looked at Helena, comparing the two of them to see who was more powerful. Until he was patted by Helena, he thought to himself, okay, the Colorado wife ring is reserved. Suddenly hearing shouting, Essex said, Mahan is back. As soon as she finished speaking, a girl rushed in, followed by a sudden stop. Seemingly seeing the living room full of people, the girl's expression suddenly became confused. Washington crossed his legs and said, you little pony. The girl hesitated for a moment, rubbed her eyes, and said in disbelief, Sister Washington. and me, South Dakota shouted, raising her hands. South Dakota fat. Then the girl saw Sugu and tilted her head little by little. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 674. Mahan, Lord Bao's bodyguard, has colleagues Zhang Long, Zhao Hu, Chao Chao. Mahan, a destroyer. It's barely considered rare in the game, and its statistics aren't impressive enough. Despite this, Sugu still kept it well after he got it. After all, the vertical painting was very good, and he seemed to be a pornographic primary school student, which made people quite concerned. In the afternoon, the cicadas were still chirping, the curtains were all opened, and a breeze blew into the living room. Short-sleeved shorts, obviously not fat, giving people a voluptuous feeling, the girl Mahan is curled up on the sofa. She held her knees with her hands, her face full of grievance. The main reason was that she was taught a lesson by Washington. Not only did she end up eating a lot of chestnuts, but the process was inhumane. As the boss of the American gang, Washington has always been ruthless in his actions. It wasn't because Sugu had only returned now that she showed great anger towards the admiral for leaving the town without authorization. Say something harsh and get a lesson. Anger is a normal thing. Even if there are many twists and turns, Sugu can understand it and so can Washington. In fact, after seeing Sugu, Mahan quickly confirmed the identity of the admiral. He gave me a warm hug, followed by chirping and asking questions, without any anger at all. The reason she was taught a lesson by Washington. Sugu was originally looking at everyone's photos when he saw the brown-haired girl break suddenly in the living room. Mahan. After being confused for a long time, the girl asked in confusion, "Admiral." Recognizing each other in an ordinary yet extraordinary way, Sugu began to explain what happened. After taking a long time to explain clearly, Mahan took out the wet clothes from the bag behind him. Essex asked curiously, "Why are all the clothes wet?" Mahan said, "There was something wrong with Alfred, which caused me to fall into the water, so all my clothes got wet." "The clothes you're wearing." Mahan tugged on the collar of the t-shirt and she said, "Vauquelin's clothes are so small, they squeeze my breasts." Washington asked, "What's wrong with your little motorcycle?" "I took it apart and when I was putting it together, I accidentally put it on wrong." "Not serious?" Washington was never a gentle big sister, she was a cold lawyer. "It doesn't comfort people, it only teaches them. Under normal circumstances, it would be very difficult for a young girl to assemble a scooter. However, the small motorcycle belongs to Mayan's ship equipment. It is like a part of the body that is not unfamiliar. There is only one reason for the assembly error." Deeply rhyming that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, South Dakota touched Mayan's head and said, "Mahan is still a child." However, Mahan did not appreciate it. "I am not a child anymore." Washington ignored South Dakota and asked, "Mahan, why did you take your scooter apart?" "I wanted to assemble Alfred into a transformer, so I broke it into parts. The Omaha instructor kept urging me, and she was fierce at me. I was in a hurry and spelled it wrong all of a sudden, and that was it." Han spread his hands, but she didn't feel conscious at all. Even if you are still a girl, you will naturally avoid the easy things and take the heavy ones. While peeling the fruit, Missouri suddenly said, "Your instructor Omaha, does she have a name called Sarah?" The Omaha is a very common light cruiser, and there are many people in the entire forward base. In order to avoid naming mistakes, of course everyone has his or her own name. After studying under the Omaha for a long time, it was impossible for Mahan not to know the instructor's name. She nodded. "Haha, your instructor has guarded me before." I just remember that she was very hard-working. In addition to attacking, she held a book and read it all day long. Missouri looked at the window, and there stood a tall lady with white hair, seeing Dengbeo, do you remember? Hindenburg's voice was rather stinky, I remember. I didn't expect that little girl to become an instructor. Missouri joked, little Mahan, she actually dares to hurt you, do you want me to help you teach her a lesson? She used to follow me like a follower, the older sister is older and the younger sister is younger. Mahan didn't trust the eldest sister who he didn't know at all except that he only knew it was the Missouri and joined the garrison. Missouri waved her hand. As a ship girl who inherited the soul of the battleship Missouri, she was not only rare, but also terrifyingly powerful. After all, the unparalleled ship equipment parameters are there, even if the frontline bases are all powerful, they can still thrive. You told me that there is no one I don't know in this general base. For example, the principal of your school was defeated by me at the beginning. If you encounter any problems, just come to me. There is nothing that I can't solve. After buying a casket for a pearl, Mahan asked excitedly, do you know how to assemble Alfred into a transformer? Missouri's smile paused as he saw Mahan take out a motorcycle out of thin air. He rode on it and circled around the living room, staring at himself eagerly. She coughed and said, I don't know how, but I know people who can assemble it. Mahan saw Missouri's embarrassment at a glance, and she said, I know people, and Sister Yuberry will definitely assemble it. Missouri is very clear about the situation in the tutelage. She shook her body and said, your sister Yuberry hasn't returned to the tutelage yet. Who do you ask to help you assemble the transformers? And me, I know a few Yuberry, anyone can help you. Mayan's eyes sparkled. The ship girl is easily influenced by the admiral. Even though she has just joined the garrison, she has actually learned many of Sugu's shortcomings. She pinched her chin and showed an evil smile, I know people, but I'm no good at all. How can I help you? With a smile on his face, Mahan said, Sister Missouri is so beautiful. Missouri burst out laughing. No girl would refuse such praise. She decisively put her arms around Mahan. Within a few seconds, she felt something strange in her chest and pushed the girl away. Little pervert. Washington was keenly aware of Mayan's movements. She raised her hand and hit the girl on the head with a bang, don't be ridiculous, what are you doing? Essex originally took Mayan's wet clothes and left, giving them to Sheng Sheng to wash and dry, but then she was stopped by Sheng Sheng again. As a head maid, of course you have to arrange food, clothing, housing, and transportation. Next, everyone will live here, and you need to know how to deal with the room. Although everyone can stay in the room of Colorado and others, it would be bad if they don't get the owner's permission. If possible, it would be better to rearrange the available rooms. However, most people will go on missions tomorrow and only need to deal with them briefly overnight. Anyway, after a long delay, Dumpling returned to the living room. When she saw Mahan holding his head in an aggrieved manner, she asked, what happened? It's nothing, Washington said in an indifferent tone. It looks cold, but it's actually cold on the outside and hot on the inside. Essex touched Mayan's head and smiled warmly. Sister Dumpling, I knew you were the best. Mahan hugged Essex, and then buried his head in Essex's hidden chest. Sugu's eyes were hot for a moment. After all, Dumpling's figure was very good. The farmer and the snake were in love, and Mahan was not satisfied and stretched out his hand to rub Essex's chest. Sure enough, the pornographic schoolboy was right. Essex was at a loss. Sugu couldn't take action, so he could only watch with his nose and heart. How could it be possible? Of course he had to appreciate the shy look of the cute dumpling. At the same time, I thought to myself, Mahan, stop it, the dumplings belong to me and no one can touch them. Let her go and do it for me. Washington made a quick move. She grabbed Mahan by the back of his collar and lifted him up. She gave him another lesson with her fists. A little jealous, Helena patted Sugu and whispered, "The dumplings are great, your eyes are straight." Sugu took Helena's hand on his lap and said, "Dumplings are not as good as you." "What about Colorado?" Helena still remembers clearly. "You won't know until you try it." Pervert, attention again in Colorado. No LA. The above is just a small episode. Sugu was playing with Helena's hand, and Mahan suddenly noticed that Helena was wearing a ring on her hand. "Hey, why is Sister Helena wearing a ring?" Unlike an innocent little girl like Xiaozai who doesn't even understand the meaning of the ring, Mahan knows exactly what the ring on the ring finger of his left hand means. She walked to Helena's side, curiously picked up Helena's left hand, and wanted to take it out. Although it is a cheap ring, the unique ring has always been Helena's pride. She didn't mind Mahan touching and turning it around, but she wasn't allowed to take it out. She immediately closed her left hand into a fist and said, "Don't take it off. I'll just take a look." Helena straightened her fingers, "You can only look at it this way." Without much thought, Mahan subconsciously asked, "Who gave you the ring?" You only need to use your brain a little to figure it out. Ask a ship girl who gave her the wedding ring on her finger. If not the admiral, who else could he be? This is simply an insult to the ship girl. Helena's tone suddenly turned cold, and she said, "Who do you think should have given it to me? Why did the admiral give you the ring? It wasn't a question just now." Mahan actually knew the answer. Helena didn't answer, she just smiled, and then held her breast with one hand, looking down at her breasts. "Mahan, what do you think this is?" South Dakotan never forgets to show off. In the guardhouse, no matter adults or children, even young girls are spared, which is staggering. My sister from South Dakota has one, too. It's amazing. There was a lot of surprise in Mahan's words. Thinking about it, every person who got a ring in the guardhouse was extremely powerful. Not only must it be beautiful, but it must also be powerful, having made great contributions to the garrison and being the absolute main force in suppressing the deep-sea flagship. He was obviously short, fat, dark, and not very strong. She really couldn't figure out why South Dakota got the ring. No matter how mature, intellectual, generous, and calm, as a ship girl, no one would refuse the ring or the approval from the admiral. Of course, if the good feelings are not enough, you will still decide. However, Washington knew her own thoughts and was unwilling to deceive herself. I usually dismiss South Dakota's rings. Regardless of how they come from, having a ring is better than not having one. Then she knew very well that except for a few little girls, they were smart enough. Most little girls don't care where the ring came from, they only care about whether you have a ring. Realizing that Mahan was looking at him, Washington withdrew his left hand. Holding the teacup in his right hand, he was sipping black tea and turned to look at the wall hanging. The taste of black tea is good, but it is not good for you to make black tea all the time. You can change the taste occasionally. If you take a closer look, the oil paintings hanging on the walls are okay. I don't know whose hand it was, but the battleship is very beautiful, although it is still not as good as Richelieu's. There are not many destroyers who are very good at observing what is happening, not only little Lolita, but also girls. Mahan was quite direct, and she leaned into Washington's side. "Mahan, what are you doing?" Washington asked. South Dakota saw it, and she smiled and said, "Washington doesn't have a ring, Mahan, you don't have to look." After all, he was a barrister. Washington was calm and wrote lightly, "I only know that someone took the ring and refused to return it." South Dakota said angrily, "Why did I take it and not return it? The admiral agreed to give the ring to me." Washington still remembers that scene. She remembers standing next to her and laughing for a long time. She said, "It took a long time to get a ring, and I can't get it out. Either I don't want to return it, Or my finger is broken, it's too thick, I think it has something to do with it. South Dakota just said, I have the ring anyway. I'm very surprised, Helena and Akagi, how they got the ring is different from you. I have a ring. Washington raised his eyebrows, can you not mention the ring? Cannot. Mahan muttered, Sister Helena has a ring. Even Sister South Dakota has a ring. Sister Washington doesn't have a ring. She is not pretty enough because she is too violent. The armor is not as good as that of South Dakota's sister. The glass cannon must be not strong enough. Mahan said to Washington, it doesn't matter, the time is really running out. His whole body was shaking, and Washington closed his eyes. When she opened it a second later, she was back to normal. I just thought to myself that South Dakota is a well-matched opponent, and they really may not be able to defeat it. The little destroyer dared to jump in front of him, he was simply overestimating his abilities, forget it, the expression of anger was too obvious. Suddenly thinking of something, Mahan lay on Sugu's lap and asked, Admiral, I also want a ring. No, Sugu refused the girl simply. He didn't want to join the gendarmerie. Admiral, look, look. Mahan stretched out one hand to cover his eyes, and then opened his clothes little by little with the other hand. First her navel was exposed, then her entire belly was exposed, and then she took a blow from Washington. Sugu thought of Cushing. Even though it had been a long time, the most he could do now was touch the little loli's head. Sister, sister, if the lovely Cushing becomes like Mahan, a pornographic schoolboy, I couldn't be more praiseworthy. At the same time, Zheng Zhou had no chance. Washington grabbed Mayan's arm and pulled it in front of him. Well, no one can save you now, little Mahan. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 675. Take a cruise and disembark at the frontline headquarters dock at noon. By the time the business was settled, it was already close to school time when I returned home. Looking through everyone's photos, Mahan planned to wait, and successfully met a certain pornographic primary school student, so he would go to meet the others next. As the head maid, she must be responsible for everyone's food, clothing, housing, and transportation, and make various preparations at home. Anyway, there are so many people with the identity of Admiral, so there is no need to worry about safety issues. Dumplings Essex is the master, where is what, and where to buy daily necessities. Facing various problems, it was inconvenient not to have her around, so I could only stay at home. Akagi just didn't care much about anything and just sat quietly on the sofa with a cup of tea. Missouri and Hindenburg decided not to join in the fun. They had many acquaintances here and it was rare for them to come over. Now they wanted to meet them. The companions of the combat team may not be at the base, but many instructors will not go out easily, such as the Victory and Queen Elizabeth. At first, he kept asking Sugu to meet his sisters, but he actually ran away. A group of people walked on the street, much smaller than before. Mahan led the team, followed by South Dakota and Washington who were constantly bickering, and Sugu and Helena were at the back. Helena, who do you think that is? Long black hair, quite tall, and good breasts. Fuzu. No, Fuzu, the football champion, can't only be at this level. Fuzu from our garrison, I remember, has to have at least 1 or 2 cup sizes larger. Akagi is about the same, but she looks more gentle than dignified. Kaohsiung probably isn't it? I don't know, who do you think it could be? Since returning to the governor's house, Helena rarely goes out. In terms of experience, Sugu has more knowledge. He said, it should be Feng Xiang. I have seen them before and I feel that their temperaments are very similar. Her admiral is a little girl, and she also there are submarine surgeonfish, I caught them randomly, and I want to kill someone. Helena said, you are such a childish girl, let's go and ask, What kind of ship girl is she? Walking into the shade from the sun, Sugu watched the black-haired beauty walk away. He said, "Forget it, don't worry about it." On the right, Helena, "Who do you think that person is?" Without unfolding the ship's uniform, there is actually no way to judge the identity of a ship girl. But judging from their appearance, whether they are pretty or cute, you can basically tell who the ship girl is. There were many ship girls living in the frontline base, and Sugu's eyes fell on a girl holding a large cardboard box. He was playing a game of guessing people's identities with Helena out of boredom, just for fun, not for the outcome or the truth. Mahan. Sister Washington. When Mahan turned around, Washington hit her on the head with a burst of chestnuts. "What's wrong?" Mahan touched his head. The ship girl would not be injured easily, she would only be in pain, so she was often treated violently. She looked aggrieved. "Just eat well. I fell into the water originally, so I changed into my classmates' clothes and went home. It wasn't too close-fitting, so Mahan changed his clothes again. Denim hot pants paired with a sleeveless midriff-bearing tank top. She is obviously a girl, but she is full of lust. It's not charming like Missouri, it's all sensual." The milk tea and grilled squid were all gone, and now she had the last hot dog in her hand. Holding the bamboo stick, the hot dog went in and out of the mouth. It seemed like he just couldn't bear to eat it all at once, but he really looked a little dirty. "Even though I have no experience, everyone in the governor's office, anyway, besides books with Sugu as the male protagonist have been circulated in the governor's office. Even though a lot of them have been confiscated, there is no accurate figure on how many are secretly there." Seeing Mahan's actions at this time, Washington couldn't stand it and had no choice but to teach him a lesson. "I don't know whether I should say he is a pornographic primary school student or an innocent primary school student." Only then did Mahan react. She held the hot dog and said thoughtfully, "The benevolent sees the benevolent, the wise see the wisdom." Unlike some pseudo-literary South Dakota girl, Washington had read a lot of books. As a barrister, she knows everything about philosophy and sophistry. "I didn't say anything to you, I just reminded you to pay attention to the impact," Washington explained. After learning a lot of lessons in one day, more than in the previous months, Mahan was determined to stay away from Washington, but he couldn't leave at all. Washington ordered, "Eat it in 1 minute." Oh. The entire frontline base is not big. After crossing the street, everyone arrived at the dock quickly. It's not a place for everyone to get off the ship. There is no square or greenery here, just large ironclad warehouses with many red, blue, and green containers. A huge freighter is docked next to it, and many people are unloading it. "Consultant Sue, here." Yes, Mahan nodded. "There aren't many classes in school, so I have a lot of free time. Although it is only a destroyer, there is no need to worry about danger." In addition to the forbidden area, Mahan and a group of destroyers visited everywhere. Even otherwise, she usually likes to ride Alfred around on his scooter. Anyway, it's clear who is who and where. After going around and around, Mahan led everyone to a warehouse, where they saw a red-haired girl commanding a group of people. In terms of strength alone, supply ships in the game can be said to have no strength at all. However, if you want to demolish it, you must carefully consider it. If you miss it, you will never get it again. The Souk Bader is definitely the player's first 6-star colored leather ship, and it will be delivered to everyone by mail. Historically a tugboat, the Mongolian Navy's premier presence cannot be underestimated. The Odin is a patrol ship belonging to the Coast Guard. Ganganeer is nothing more than a special tool, the net cutter, which works by cutting the trawl lines of fishing boats. Two little girls, their life in the Tutlari mansion. Souk Bader is addicted to fishing all day long, and he keeps saying that he wants to catch the submarines U-96 and U-156 and advance to the Grand Master. However, there is no possible sign so far. Sugu has given up hope. He is even more hopeful that U-47 can meet the sisters somewhere. Odin likes to wear large hats and has a mysterious desire to protect the sea near the garrison. They can't go on expeditions or launch attacks. To be honest, the two supply ships have no role other than being cute. Well, the two little girls just need to be cute enough. Nothing is more important than this, intensity doesn't matter. There are many situations where destroyers serve as secretary ships in the garrison. It is not just the reason why Africans cannot produce big sisters. Then many battleships, such as Bazai and South Dakota, are also useless. You can't just look at the ship type, you can't just look at the appearance. Everyone works together at the frontline main base, and many of them are in combat groups. Although no one will withhold supplies, in any case, there are people in the DPRK who are good at serving as officials. Someone works in the logistics team and is favored for his outstanding work ability. She is the supply ship Vesta Goddess. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 676. The red-haired girl held a list in one hand and a pen in the other, and took a deep look at the cargo box. There was nothing wrong with the goods, so she checked one item on the list with a pen. It was just a routine inspection at first. After all, the front line base is extremely important. Anyone who dares to send fake and shoddy goods has no way to bribe the ship girl. Tapping her fingers on the wooden boxes, the red-haired girl said, "Indianapolis, please close these boxes and put them in Area F and mark them." "Hi, Sister Kitchen Goddess." Wearing a turban, an apron, sleeves, and gloves. As a heavy cruiser, Indianapolis is obviously much taller than Vesta. Her figure is slim and tall, and her appearance is beautiful. It is no longer suitable to use words like cute to describe her. It should be said that she is young and beautiful. Even so, she still obeyed the orders of the little girl. With only the power of the ship's equipment, Indianapolis easily lifted the cargo box. The kitchen goddess only glanced at it. "Be careful. It's a joke," Indianapolis said in high spirits. Putting the first list on her hand to the end, the female kitchen goddess said to a blonde girl beside her, "Borg, look at this reimbursement list. Do you think Kyanghua Guard's house needs so many resources?" Berg took the list and she glanced briefly. Her eyes fell on the resource column. The number was actually not that big. It didn't seem to be anything special, and she couldn't see why. The female kitchen goddess spun the pen and said, "How many ship girls are there in the Kyanghua Guard house, and how many new ship girls have been sent to the school at the base? How many people are left, and how much expenses are needed? And what models do they belong to? Even if the same durability is lost, different ship girls require different resources. Take this list home, study it more, and give me a reply tomorrow." Borg nodded. It was a rare task given to her by the kitchen goddess, and she must complete it well. "Penelope, and your mission, come with me." The girl with glasses and white hair and golden eyes kept up with the pace of the kitchen goddess. Until the kitchen goddess walked away, Indianapolis pushed Borg. Her eyes fell on the man by the warehouse door and asked, "Who is that man?" "He came over to find the kitchen goddess. I saw them talking for a while." The kitchen goddess became restless when she came back. "There are so many people there, and they all look very tough. Not to mention South Dakota, short and fleshy, fat and kind. Washington, who was leaning against the wall and pursed his lips, looked like a cool barrister and a gangster lady. All that's left is a cigarette and an axe." Helena looked capable, with her hands clasped behind her hips, and she was looking at the schedule hanging on the wall. "The size of her chest is really terrifying, and it has a 100% lethality effect on women, and a 100% lethality effect on men. Little Mahan is there. Destroyer Mahan likes to ride a small motorcycle around the world, and often comes to the warehouse to cheat on food and drink." Those were the family members of the kitchen goddess, and Borg naturally recognized them. The female kitchen goddess came back. Her ears were very sharp and she heard the conversation between the two. She didn't mind and said, I am the admiral. Ah. I told you. After finally handing over the tasks one by one, the kitchen goddess clapped her hands and shouted, "You don't have to ask me, you have to take care of your own affairs. If you want to get off work, you can do it yourself." The setting sun dyed the pier red, as if the whole world was coated with a layer of orange. Standing by the door of the warehouse, Sugu was watching the impatient Mahan riding around on his scooter. Despite the many containers, there is still a lot of open space nearby. One thing is amazing. It is obviously equipped with a propeller, so Alfred should be a jet ski. At this time, it seems that running on land is completely okay, and the speed is quite fast. If there weren't so many people, he would like to try an amphibious motorcycle. In fact, this was not long after everyone found the female kitchen god. After a good exchange, the female kitchen goddess said, "Wait for me to arrange the work first," and she left. Then everyone saw her from a distance directing people to do this and that. Not to mention the little girl, most people in the guardhouse are not as capable as her. They are both supply ships, but the difference is really huge. Suk Bader and Odin are just young girls, and the female kitchen goddess can actually become the leader Sugu's A-side. South Dakota said, "The kitchen goddess has always been very powerful." South Dakota has a good relationship with the goddess of the Vesta, which goes back to history. Vesta was a famous repair ship that fought in both world wars. Compared with the Mongolian navy and its fishing boats, the female kitchen goddess can be said to be the senior among seniors. Repairing a ship can also be said to be a doctor, and no one would hate the existence of a doctor. Then the Vesta repaired the South Dakota twice. With such a relationship, it would be strange if South Dakota's affection for the Vesta didn't explode. You are so tall, yet you are able to command people much older than you without any ambiguity or stage fright. Helena said, "Admiral, don't wear colored glasses. Little lowly girls can be very powerful. The kitchen goddess is the one. I'm just curious that someone actually obeys her." Mahan rode his scooter and stopped in front of Sugu. She said, "Sister Indianapolis, Sister Borg." Helena said, "Ability comes first. Then, if you just want a ship, no one will not sell the face of the goddess of the kitchen. Even Lexington can't compare with it. Generally speaking, the gangster lady of the Enterprise is a double bonus in Washington. As for the kitchen goddess, she is a retired boss who hides away from others. She doesn't care if you fight back and forth, but once she appears, everyone has to listen to her." To be honest, Sugu didn't care about the female kitchen goddess in the game. Firstly, she wasn't strong enough, and secondly, she was very beautiful in the vertical painting, but she didn't care about the hairstyle. Now that I am here, after studying in the academy, I have an understanding of the female kitchen goddess, but it is still not enough. The main reason is that people usually don't discuss a supply ship. They either discuss who has long legs and big breasts, or discuss who has unparalleled combat power and lacks attention. So powerful, Sugu thought to himself, after York City, Hornet, and Missouri, the company must have another bargaining chip. Helena smiled. Washington and South Dakota used to quarrel and almost fight. Every time the kitchen goddess appeared, they could easily resolve it. It's really extraordinary. It's not that you rely on your old skills to sell your old skills, you rely on your small skills to sell your small skills. Forget it. Helena reorganized her words. Anyway, every time Washington and South Dakota quarrel, the goddess of the kitchen brings many people over to watch, as if watching the fun. The two of them stopped arguing immediately. After all, we can't watch monkey shows. Sugu thought to himself, rely on wit. Washington bullied me every time, South Dakota said. I never bully people, I just seek truth from facts. South Dakota fatty, why do you think I bullied you? Sugu thought to himself, Washington, instead of calling South Dakota, you insist on calling South Dakota fat. You have been bullying people from the beginning. However, South Dakota was lost in memories and didn't hear it for a while. She just said, every day she says I'm short. The problem is, aren't you short? South Dakota rubbed his head and compared it to Washington. It happened that she liked to wear flat cloth shoes, and Washington always had a pair of high boots. There was no comparison at all, and his expression became a little dull and aggrieved. Washington, you are bullying South Dakota again. After everything was dealt with, the female kitchen goddess appeared behind her. Spreading his hands, Washington said, I'm just being honest. Do you think South Dakota is short? The female kitchen goddess said, it's really a bit short. Hey, kitchen goddess, what are you talking about? South Dakota was so angry that she almost jumped. The girl smiled and looked at Sugu. Admiral, you have been waiting for a long time. Sugu didn't mind at all. If you have something to do, just be busy, we don't care. Washington and South Dakota are giving you trouble. Even though he respected the kitchen goddess, Washington would not show the same attitude towards the little Lolita. But she didn't want to be treated like a child. She said, you are so old-fashioned. Who walked away in the first place and left me to clean up the mess? I couldn't find the admiral, so it was good that I didn't have a mental breakdown. I left with my heart filled with despair. How could I think so much? Washington laughed dryly. Lexington took Gaga and ran away, which is quite abominable. I took North Carolina, and my sister turned into a little girl to escape the fact that the admiral left the garrison. I took care of her by myself. She also has to support a certain little fat guy from time to time. South Dakota scoffed, I don't need your help. Not at all. Let's talk about it. Washington was a barrister, South Dakota was just a clerk. Because he often makes mistakes, he needs to change jobs every once in a while, and he really needs help from Washington. Of course, South Dakota deceived itself and North Carolina had to step up. The kitchen goddess sighed, Maryland has grown up and become very reckless, making big mistakes from time to time. Colorado and West Virginia are okay, but not much better. Dumplings always need to be taken care of, and the chatty eagle only chatters every day. Holding the back of her head with both hands, the female kitchen goddess is actually not stable. Suddenly something occurred to her, and her expression became ugly. Consultant Sue, what's the problem? Rubbing her temples, the kitchen goddess just made an expression. Ovo. Mahan made a move. // You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 677. Find the supply ship Vesta in the warehouse at the dock, and return home together, with reputation ready for everything. After dinner, it was already time to go to bed at night. The chirping of insects sounded in the night, and Helena wore a silk pajamas and walked barefoot on the solid wood floor. Everyone is going to attack tomorrow, but only the reputation of the head maid is left. It just so happens that Akage doesn't care too much about anything, so Helena naturally dominates Sugu. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, Sugu was flipping through a large photo album. I saw a cute blue-haired girl in the photo, with an unexpectedly round face and an extremely bright smile. She was none other than Quincy. She was holding her arms around the neck of the girl with short green hair, her sister New Orleans. There are large fields of tulips and windmills in the background. I don't know where they took the photo. What a pity that Quincy isn't here to attack. Her long hair, which had been tied up with hairpins during the day, fell down and fell on her shoulders and draped over her back. Helena said, They didn't attack. They just went out to perform. Mahan didn't know anything. Even though it was a supply ship, Vesta served as the housekeeper of the family and was very knowledgeable about every aspect. She explained the current situation in New Orleans and Quincy. I wasn't too interested in the scenery. I mainly wanted to see the characters. After flipping through the photo album for several pages, Sugu said, I didn't expect that Quincy actually became an idol, even though he was just an idol in a small place every family performed at the frontline garrison. It feels like a cultural troupe. No matter how you think about it, Quincy is not reliable as an idol. Silly Quinn. Fortunately, besides her, there are several other people as a ship. Helena knows Quincy well. No, the more she gets to know her, the more uneasy she becomes. In the original game, there were only 3 heavy cruisers that had reached the full level, and the Quincy was one of them, and Sugu liked it very much. Her IQ is indeed not that good, but her cuteness is enough. Looking through another photo, Quincy was standing seriously in front of the small building. He ate a lot of food in his mouth and his face bulged like a hamster. Coupled with the confused expression, it is simply intoxicating. After hearing Helena's words, Sugu suddenly became dissatisfied. He said, why can't Quincy do it? Trying to make an ovo expression, Sugu hummed softly and clapped his legs with his palms, Quincy kun, Quincy kun, Quincy kungzi kungzi kun. Helena wanted to complain, but suddenly she felt that her tone seemed decent, and she said, Eugene Ou is also an idol. Sugu curled his lips and said with a smile, it's so rare to see Prince Eugen perform once, and stay with Bismarck all day long. I looked for Bismarck 10 times, and I could see her 7 or 8 times. Helena, you don't know, as an idol you can't have a lover, but Eugen Ou already has someone in your heart. She is a little secretary, a little nanny, a little lover, not an idol. Ching ye ching. Sugu sneered, poor sister, my sister Ili has a great figure. Since she is quite wealthy, she will never be thought of as being jealous. Helena said, does the admiral only look at a girl's breasts when he evaluates her? Sugu nodded sincerely, aren't you talking nonsense? Why didn't I realize you were such a person before? You really didn't find it? Helena held her forehead, remembering that she had been harassed in a swimsuit before. Thinking of everything, she felt really confused. The admiral, who had been missing for a long time, appeared again. His personality had changed a lot and he no longer harassed people. However, as everyone's relationship became closer, their true nature was gradually revealed. You just said last time that small breasts are a scarce resource. Scarce doesn't mean good. Little house. Hey, Zai is still a child, Helena, you pervert. Sugu smiled to himself. Most of the time he was just joking, but having breasts was definitely a plus. Let me emphasize, Zai is the cutest in the world. It's said that Quincy and Kingyi fell in love and killed each other, but they are not together. Sugu fell on the bed, with the photo album covering his face. I want to watch Bai Shui. You think too much. Lifting up the photo album, Sugu turned another page, and Quincy's photo appeared again. The girl was wearing a white dress, a gorgeous bust-wrap dress. Next to her, New Orleans was wearing a small suit, like a working woman. New Orleans looks like Quincy's agent. Sister, nanny, agent, New Orleans, really made things difficult for my sister. Do Quincy lawnmowers really exist? Helena knew the admiral's bad character very well. She said, Quincy is quite greedy, but no matter how you think about it, she doesn't know how to eat grass. Disappointed Sugu thought about it and became excited again. What will happen if I feed her grass? Helena stood by the window. She first opened the curtains, then thought about it and pulled it up again. She turned around and said, the favorability of New Orleans should be reduced by at least 10 points, 10 points at a time. Why does New Orleans' favorability drop so much if I feed Quincy grass? How can a sister not be angry when her sister is bullied? Then feed the leeks. You are really enough. Helena said so. In fact, she knew the character of her admiral very well. Usually I keep saying that I must do something and bully others, but in the end I won't do it at all. For example, when I usually fight with York City and often walk by the river, my shoes will never get wet and I will suffer losses every time. He clamored that York City must wear small shoes and teach him a lesson. In the end, York City would be much better than ordinary people. Blue is the color of wisdom. I never understand, is Quincy really that stupid? She's just naive and doesn't use her brain. Sugu thought about the history of the Quincy heavy cruiser, mistakenly identifying the enemy as a friendly force, and then letting the Aoba sink it. Falling in love and killing each other also comes from this, he nodded. The photo album was gradually being flipped through. Helena finished handling the trivial matters and sat back on the bed. I'm going to attack tomorrow. I don't know if I can meet Quincy. I see Chien. Missouri and Hindenburg went to see their old friends, and came back in the evening to inform them that they would not be coming back for supper. I didn't come back until late at night, and then told everyone what tasks might be coming next. There are a group of relatively powerful deep-sea ship girls in the nearby waters. If they are not suppressed, they may cause trouble, and if they are suppressed, they may be dangerous. Like chicken ribs, it is a pity to throw them away if they are tasteless. Because the company boasts that they are stronger, they may take over the task of suppressing this group of enemies. Of course, it's still unclear what the mission will be at the moment. Sugu looked at his watch. I hope anyway. I'm suddenly looking forward to Silk Kun. Going to bed, Helena. Turning off the lights and getting ready to go to sleep, Sugu hugged Helena in the dark, and he suddenly laughed again. What are you thinking about, Admiral? Sugu put his hand on Helena's chest, and the touch felt great. Just now you said King Yi. I originally wanted to say that big breasts mean you can do whatever you want. Helena deliberately smiled charmingly. I also remembered that you usually talk about 7 times a night. So I will do it 7 times. Sugu said shamelessly, you're not even allowed to brag. Haha, Helena smiled like a witch. Soon the next day came when the kitchen goddess had to go to work and the work had to be handed over. Mahan also needs to go to school, and it would be convenient for her to drop out anyway. If you have the opportunity to play with your classmates, cherish it. You will probably have few opportunities in the future. Except for Reputation, who came here to take care of people, everyone left the frontline base one after another. After all, they agreed to the company's request before coming here. After seeing them off, the business was over, and only Sugu and his Reputation were left. Although it is said to be a frontline base, there are no soldiers standing ready, and there is no solemn atmosphere. After all, this is not a life and death war. Rather than a war front, it is better to call it a land reclamation front. In addition, retaking the ocean is not something that can be accomplished overnight. There is only one street in the base, which looks like an ordinary city street, but there are not so many people. Except for the rarely seen trucks, there are almost no ordinary cars. There are quite a few shops, among which women's clothing stores, jewelry stores, and handicraft stores are the most numerous. The price of various products is at least several times higher than elsewhere. The path from the pier to the base is like a series of large steps. There are various shops and small buildings on the inner side of the steps, and the blue sea and blue sky are on the outer side. At this time, Suguhi Shengsheng was sitting on the outside side of the street, on a bench facing the sea under the shade of a tree. From here, he could see the entire sea. In the past, Reputation was always used to standing next to Sugu, but now under Sugu's strong request, he would sit down without saying anything. In fact, Sugu had a purpose, so that he could sleep on the famous lap pillow conveniently. We will probably stay here for half a month to a month. It mainly depends on everyone's progress on the front line. If everything goes well, it should be very soon. The sea is different from the land. There are only so many islands, and garrisoning them is more important than opening up wasteland. Have no idea. Reputation, it's just the two of us. I think of the time we went to find Veneto together. I miss it so much. It was a constant rush. That Lexington doesn't look like our Lexington. After leaving the dock, I was still curious, so I made a special trip to the milk tea shop where Missouri said the owner was Lexington. I have to say that milk tea is really expensive, and I feel like I'm being treated like a pig. After carefully comparing the appearance of the other party and his wife, he saw many differences. The nose is slightly straighter, the breasts are not that big, the face is pointier, and it doesn't look so much like a dowry. Reputation, do you think Nelson and Victory look alike? It feels a little bit like that. I actually met the Victory in a milk tea shop in Lexington, and had a good conversation. I heard a lot of interesting things that happened to Missouri and Hindenburg from Victory's mouth that I didn't know about. The Victory also felt strange that Sugu had fished out Missouri and Hindenburg, especially fishing out Missouri was not that easy. In fact, if you think about it, it's not easy to get Missouri's sincerity. Everyone got to know each other after being introduced to the company, and my personality happened to be quite opportunistic. He was brought back to the garrison until Missouri experienced the hell of losing consecutive drills and the heaven of Lexington's gentle comfort, so he was barely successful. Speaking of which, Sugu specifically asked if Victory knew a pair of sisters, Nelson and Rodney. The blindfolds of Nelson and the Prince of Wales are in different positions. One left eye and one right eye. Prestige, pretending to be Nelson. Reputation narrowed one eye. I didn't expect that the big mackerel and archer fish are not here, to be honest. Sugu was very concerned about submarines. From a vertical perspective, these two fish were cuter than U-boats. The carrying cook is a big mackerel, an absolute renegade girl, with a better figure than U-81. Everyone speculates that it may be with Dei Feng. Really, I have always felt that the name of the goddess of the kitchen is unpleasant and very tacky. It would be much better if it was called Hestia. No, it would be better to call it Hestia. Hestia, in charge of the hearth fire, is the symbol of the family and the protector of millers and bakers. She is also the goddess of the hearth in ancient Greek mythology. Hestia has black twin tails, a petite and immature figure, but a plump upper body. The most important thing is the blue ribbon that passes under her breasts and is tied to her arms. Reputation replied, "It's okay. Do you think Quincy and New Orleans will come back first, or the Colorado sisters?" I already knew from the mouth of the goddess of kitchen that Quincy and New Orleans had been out for a while and it was almost time to come back. As for the Colorado sisters, you will probably meet them when you go out. Even on the front line, there can be no fighting at all times. When the admiral comes back, he should rush back to meet him. At worst, he will go out last. Sugu kept saying that the reputation of wearing a maid uniform was only an occasional response. A gust of sea breeze blew by, and she suddenly touched Sugu's head, smiled and said, "I remembered that everyone else was a ship's wife sleeping on the admiral's lap pillow. Every time the master slept on everyone's lap pillow, I, Lexington, Akagya, Prince of Wales." Sugu suddenly got up from the prestigious lap pillow and explained, "It's just that they don't want to sleep on my lap pillow, that's okay with me. Otherwise, like Saratoga and Bazai, they often sleep on my lap pillow. And Xiazai, Lafite, Fantasy, Sigsby, and many others. Like a child." Sugu tilted his head to look at the reputation. He reached out and brushed the short golden hair around the maid's ears. He especially liked short hair and shoulder-length hair. Suddenly thinking of something, he patted his thigh and said, "Sheng Sheng, this time you sleep on my lap pillow." Naturally, the head maid doesn't want to do this. Sugu said, I gave the order. Then the reputation is just disobedience. No, my head maid. The reputation of the god of war was fearless. She was not too shy. She just glanced around, then carefully slept on Sugu's lap pillow. That's good, you are satisfied. I'm not satisfied enough, I need you to be satisfied. But what if I'm not satisfied no matter what? Sugu was stunned for a moment, stretched out his hand to stroke the short hair of the famous blonde, leaned down and whispered softly, I really like you, head maid. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 678. Goodbye, New Orleans. It's the end of the show and it's on the dock. The woman who spoke was dressed in a full costume, and her performance clothes were not taken off. By the girl with short green hair, the heavy cruiser USS New Orleans, raised her palms and waved. We have to leave too, Akin. New Orleans no longer expects her sister to say goodbye properly. Anyway, everyone is used to it, so that's almost enough. She turned around and wanted to call her sister, and the two of them were about to leave. Suddenly he realized that the person who was by his side just now was gone, and he blinked in confusion. If you're looking for Quincy, she's in front. New Orleans took a closer look and saw the blue-haired girl squatting next to the green belt not far away. Already used to this kind of development, my sister never stopped for a moment. New Orleans said to her companion, Quincy's character is really troublesome, you should leave first. The sea breeze rustled the big trees on the roadside, and New Orleans walked to his sister's side. Someone's cute little Shiba Inu was lying on the ground, and Quincy was rubbing the dog's belly desperately. The puppy seemed happy with its limbs flailing around, and Quincy was even happier. Akin, we're going home. New Orleans dragged the trolley suitcase. Without any movement at all, Quincy said, what a cute puppy. Be careful. It doesn't matter, I'll be careful, it won't bite. After exhaling, New Orleans said, I remind you, after you rub it, don't pull the puppy's tail. Quincy finally let go of the little Shiba Inu's tail, poked the puppy's belly with his finger, and touched it again. Sister, look, it's a little bitch. New Orleans felt that she couldn't keep up with Quincy's rhythm, so she could only respond. Can I raise it? Quincy asked on a whim. Not a seagull or an albatross, the little Shiba Inu that appears on the pier clearly has an owner. New Orleans knew this very well, she said, there is a master. No dog tags, no leash. Before Quincy finished speaking, a black-haired woman stood next to her and said in a faint tone, as long as I call out, Leffa will definitely respond, but you can't. The master came and caught a trick. New Orleans quickly said, I'm sorry, my sister said it casually. It's okay, Quincy, and New Orleans, I know you. I've seen you perform many times. Quincy sings very well, but you don't know me. The big dog gave birth to many, most of them have been given away, and this is the last one. If you want to keep it, it doesn't matter if you take it away, as long as you treat it well. // Really, Quincy cheered, growing more and more excited. The little Shiba Inu doesn't have much understanding of its owner yet, so he can be petted by her without biting or barking. Really, the black-haired woman nodded. Quincy was very cute and would treat Leffa well. Thank you for your kindness. New Orleans naturally understood his sister, it won't work. Quincy has such a temper that he will lose interest after a while. Quincy stood up, put his hands on his hips, and said confidently, I will raise it well and make it fat. If you don't want to raise it, you can still make it into a dog meat pot. The black-haired woman laughed dryly. Quincy said in a serious tone, 1 black, 2 yellow, 3 flowers and 4 white. The smell of dog meat makes the Buddha jump over the wall. The dog meat rolls 3 times and the gods cannot stand still. New Orleans opened her mouth slightly, and the air around her was a little solid for a moment, and she waved her hand. A joke. A joke. In the afternoon, the sun gradually changes color. Walking on the street, thinking of the embarrassing scene on the pier, New Orleans touched his sister's long, smooth blue hair and whispered, "Akin." Just one word, how much sadness can't be expressed. Quincy patted the red fire hydrant on the side of the road and said dissatisfiedly, "I just said I would give it to us, but then I went back on my word and broke my promise." "Do you know how to use idioms?" New Orleans thought, and she said, "They gave you the dog, and I hope you treat it well. If you don't want to keep it anymore, you can't say dog meat in a pot to my face." Quincy clasped his hands behind his back, in private. New Orleans deadpanned. "But dog meat is really delicious." Quincy shook his head, clasping his hands and moving them around. "It's grown up and made fat. If you don't want to raise it anymore, why don't you throw it away if you don't want to eat it?" "What a pity." New Orleans said, "If you can't be responsible, then don't keep pets. Even if you don't want to keep them, it's better to give them away than to eat them. If it was my dog, I could do whatever I wanted." New Orleans didn't know how to refute. Her sister was definitely not an idiot. She had always believed it. After all, how could an idiot say such a thing? She sighed, "That's why I won't give it to you." Quincy grunted twice, feeling happy for nothing. She was very dissatisfied, so she kicked all the stones on the roadside into the sewer. There are many shops along the street. After all, the ship girl has a generous salary and doesn't have much idea of saving money. Beautiful clothes, exquisite jewelry, and food. Even though the base has restricted prices and does not allow them to be too high, most merchants are still making a lot of money. At this time, Quincy took a look at the bakery and said, "Sister, Quincy is hungry." Of course, the money will not be handed over to Quincy for safekeeping, it will all be placed on New Orleans. Quincy is not a complete idiot, of course she knows that she has to pay for food. New Orleans refused, "You just ate." "I'm hungry anyway." Quincy had an expression of "it's up to you." There was really nothing he could do about his sister. New Orleans could only emphasize, "You can't eat too much. We have to eat at night, so we can only choose one cake." Not long after coming out of the bakery, New Orleans looked at a bag of croissants and caterpillar bread in Quincy's arms. The sun shone on her body, but there was no warmth, and she only felt cold. She squatted on the ground and covered her face with her hands, remembering the scene in the bakery just now. Her face turned red. "Sister, I want this." "Akin, no, you can only have one." As he finished speaking, he saw Quincy licking the bread with his tongue, so he had no choice but to buy it all. Everyone says Quincy is stupid, but only through experience can you know that he is not stupid at all. Of course, New Orleans saw Quincy's wit as a knack. In the eyes of others, to do such a thing for a piece of bread is a truly mindless fool. It's extremely embarrassing, only a child would do such a thing. A big bag of bread, you can eat it for a long time. Quincy looked pleased with it. In her mind, just being laughed at is enough for her to eat. Come on, it's all coming. Not having such a big heart, it took New Orleans a long time to recover. They patted their faces and told themselves that it didn't matter, they were used to it. New Orleans still couldn't help but teach her sister that anyone can give up, but the sister can't give up. She said, "Akin." Without holding it with his hands, Quincy bit his bread and looked towards New Orleans. "Akin, don't eat bread like this, Akin, you can't do this kind of thing next time. You can't eat in advance without buying it. You have a lot of money, you can afford it. But that will make you look stupid. If I didn't do that, wouldn't everyone call me silly cunt?" Quincy idiot has become deeply rooted in people's hearts, and it will probably be difficult for everyone to change their minds. Looking at her sister's blinking innocent eyes, which were as clear as gems, she really couldn't bear to lie to others, so she could only say firmly, "Akin, don't worry. As long as sister is here, no one can bully you. Passing by a big banyan tree, someone was buying cold drinks under the tree. New Orleans stopped his sister in advance. We don't want to buy anything. We are already halfway there. I will make pudding for you when we get home. Good. New Orleans said to himself, I don't know if Dumpling is back. She has been out for a long time. Colorado and the others should still be on mission, probably only the kitchen goddess and Mahan are at home. Akin, what do you want to eat tonight? Zongzi. You can't eat the rice dumpling leaves? Even if Mahan gives them to you, you can't eat them either. Quincy thought for a moment and hugged New Orleans. I want to eat my sister. New Orleans knew what it meant. I'm not a chicken drumstick, she said. Quincy bit New Orleans' ear. New Orleans grilled chicken wings. I'm not grilling chicken wings either. Then just eat dog meat. I suddenly want to eat it. New Orleans made its own decision. Let's have steak tonight. Wait until we pass by the store, or wait until we get home and put away our luggage before going to the store. Tomatoes, broccoli, onions, snowflake beef. Let me think about it again. What do I need? Quincy said, let's eat and look up at the stars. Sorry. I can't do that kind of thing. Boiling water and cabbage. As long as you can eat it. I still remember when we all went to Sichuanxiu together. There were all kinds of delicious food in that city. I found a high-end restaurant and the dish of boiled cabbage was unforgettable. It sounds ordinary, but tastes extraordinary. Think about it in New Orleans. If you have to make it yourself, you will just pour boiling water into the cabbage. Quincy said, nothing. Otherwise it's dark cooking, or, it's too difficult. The main base is really not big, so they didn't walk long and soon arrived at the door of their home. I saw a man sitting on a swing under the big banyan tree, with many little girls sitting next to him. Who is that? Quincy tiptoed and said, it seems to be telling a story. I'll sneak over and listen to it. Akin, no, it's rude. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 679. Usually I can only listen to everyone showing off how good the Admiral is, but I obviously have an Admiral but he is missing, which makes people feel embarrassed. Now the Admiral is back, and he is awesome, especially the stories he tells are so interesting and full of ups and downs. Of course, Mahan showed off in school. Although he is a pornographic schoolboy, Mahan has a cheerful personality and Alfred, his little motorcycle, can take people for a ride at any time. As a car owner, she is quite popular among the little Lolita. Little Loli didn't have such big ideas and didn't know how to be polite, so she agreed to play at home and listen to the story. It's been a few days since everyone struck out. The front-line general base was really not big. With his reputation, Sugu only spent one day visiting everywhere, and he suddenly became bored. There are ship girls everywhere here, it can be said to be the Admiral's holy land for fishing boats. However, just thinking about the fact that there are already so many people in the garrison, you can get whatever you want. It's too difficult to get a capital ship that you don't own, and the average ship girl has no interest in messing with it anymore. It is said that the woods deep in this island are very interesting, but Sugu has never intended to die and hates bugs. When Mahan came home from school, she brought back a group of little Lolita. Sugu was very happy. If there's anything better than playing with one little Loli, it's playing with two little Lolis. If there's anything better than playing with two little Lolita, it's playing with a bunch of little Lolita. A round table was set up under the big banyan tree outside the small building. Fruits, snacks, and black tea were placed on the round table, and the little Loli sat next to it with a small bench and a small mat. There was no need for Mahan to lift his clothes and expose his belly and chest. Sugu was happy to tell everyone stories. Sugu originally wanted to talk about the match seller Veneto, but finally decided to forget it. Veneto's dreams were just a few, not exciting and suspenseful enough. When Hood was found, she was knocked unconscious in the room. According to her description, a person appeared from the shadows of the bathroom and attacked her. No property was lost, and Leipzig's suspicion can be ruled out for the time being. There was no violation. So Bismarck and Prince Eugen were not the first suspects. Hood thought carefully about what she had lost. She touched her empty heart and suddenly murmured with a heartbroken expression. The ginger and fish cakes were gone. I know who it is. Detective Xiao Zai adjusted her glasses. She has already guessed who the murderer is. Andrea, Veneto, and Long Xiang were brought up. Andrea claimed to have evidence of alibi, and she was with her sister Caio at the time. Long Xiang said that I was a light aircraft carrier and did not pass the attack at all. The power to knock down the battle cruiser Hood at once. When everyone looked at Veneto, they saw Veneto sneer, turn around and jump out of the windowsill. The 381mm cannon appeared behind him. Hood asked Lexington, "Did you see a 1.3-meter little Lolita walking over?" Lexington told Hood that Veneto had escaped to the depths of the sea, and to find her she must defeat 998 enemies. Everything can be lost, except ginger and fish cakes. From then on, Hood embarked on a journey to find Veneto. Hood's first partner is called Reputation. He was the god of war who scared off Scharnhorst and Gneisenau 1-2. His fighting power is unparalleled. Hood's second partner is the Prince of Wales. The story is actually not that great, but the target is a little Lolita. They haven't watched any cartoons since they were young, and naturally there is no TV to watch. To them, fairy tales are already great, so Sugu's story is quite decent. After talking for a long time, Sugu stopped. Unwilling to give up, the little Lolita urged him to continue. I originally wanted to ask for a reward, a kiss on the face or something, but thinking about Mahan, a pornographic primary school student, it was not good to make him angry. Always let me take a break, Sugu said. The little Lolita began to play with themselves, and one of them made Sugu very concerned. She was wearing a scarf even in the middle of summer. Mahan sat next to Sugu. She looked at the little Loli who was not far away and introduced, "That's Shiranui. Isn't it too hot? There is a bandage under Shiranui's scarf. She doesn't like to be seen by others." Mahan suddenly made a sinister voice, "There is a bandage under the scarf, and there are sutures under the bandage. If the sutures are removed, Shiranui's head will fall off. Come down." Historically speaking, when Shiranui was attacked by a submarine, the most severely damaged part was the bow. Later, the bow was cut off to facilitate towing by friendly ships. The sutures and U-turns were naturally caused by Mahan to scare people. The most he thought about was that there were scars on his neck, and Shiranui didn't want anyone to know. Not long after, when the little Loli asked to hear a story again, Sugu stopped talking about Huda this time. Because of Shiranui, he thought of a story, a ghost story. It's just that he was a little disappointed when he looked at his surroundings. It was broad daylight, the sunshine was very good, there was not even a bit of sea breeze, and there was no way to create a scary atmosphere. I imagined that the little Lolita in the guarding mansion was telling ghost stories. She also knew how to close the door, draw the curtains, turn off the lights, and light candles. However, there was no other way. After all, it was difficult for a grown man to lead a group of little Lolita into a dark room, so Sugu could only make do with it. I once studied at the Naval Academy and heard a lot of rumors. The authenticity can no longer be verified. Just listen to it. There is a sea next to the Aircraft Carrier Academy, and there is always a young girl wearing blue water and a grey animal-eared hoodie wandering along the coast. Whenever the young girl notices someone coming, she will jump into the sea and disappear without a trace. The strange place is here, everyone who sees the young girl will go crazy. There is a ghost in the big playground. Many people have seen a girl with blonde hair and ponytail there. Whenever they want to go up to say hello, the person disappears and there is only a green carrier-based aircraft hovering in the sky. The senior of the college said, "The girl with blonde hair and ponytail is a ship girl named Bumblebee. Her admiral took away the carrier-based aircraft and no longer wanted her, and she was unwilling to accept it. The story I'm telling you now is different. It happened when I was in school. I had a classmate whose surname was Chen. We called him Xiao Chen. He had a baby face. He was not very tall, I should say quite short. He already had many destroyers. Desperately wanted a capital ship. After a lot of hard work and all of us helping him, he finally got a chance to build it. It was already evening, the wind was very strong, and the fallen leaves on the ground were blown up by the wind, which made it look desolate. We told him to pick a time tomorrow to build it, but it was too late now. He said he couldn't wait any longer, and it didn't matter. He was still very optimistic. The construction time of Missouri was more than 6 hours, and he could make it before 12 o'clock. He had already made up his mind, and we had no choice, so he went to eat. When we returned after eating, he was still building. When we went to see him for the second time, he fell to the ground. We woke him up, and he was trembling and speechless, and his fingers were trembling. This incident ended up being nothing. It is very common for construction to fail. But after this incident, a strange thing happened in the warehouse where my classmate Xiao Chen built the ship girl. The resources were clearly organized in the afternoon, and the second everything was in chaos. Some people said rats, others said wildcats, but those heavy steels, not to mention small animals, could not be moved by ordinary people. There was a man, we called him John, who was curious and ran over at night to find out. It turned out that there was a person looking through the resources, and I saw it through the moonlight. Sugu gave up a little bit. "What do you see?" The sudden voice was a bit unfamiliar, and Sugu didn't react. He just lowered his voice and made it gloomy. "John saw a headless man standing in the warehouse." "Why is there no head?" This time Sugu realized that this silly voice did not belong to anyone present. He turned around and saw a cute blue-haired girl behind him. Little Loli also heard it, and Mahan turned around and said, "You scared me, silly cunt." Hearing Mahan's words, Sugu's eyes widened. He paused and said, "Hi, Quincy." "Admiral, are you alive again?" The voice was a little surprised, but not surprised. "For it. The ship girl follows the Admiral unswervingly, even to the point of committing suicide." Sugu knew very well that everyone in the governor's office still insisted. The main reason was that they did not see the body and stubbornly believed that the Admiral was still alive but just missing. Now it seems that Quincy's brain circuitry is different from everyone else's. It seemed that he finally realized that this was everyone's Admiral, and he was back. Quincy hugged Sugu's neck. They were sitting on a rickety swing, but both of them suddenly fell to the ground. "Sister, look, who is this?" "Sister, the Admiral was just telling the story of the headless ship girl. It was so scary." Sugu saw New Orleans' cold expression and thought that this girl might be very sensitive to headlessness in her heart. Sheng Sheng had been preparing in the kitchen for a long time, and she brought a fruit plate. After meeting New Orleans and Quincy, Sugu continued to tell stories without saying a few words. Quincy was feasting, while New Orleans stared at Sugu and clenched his fists, preparing to punch. The outline had already been revised. Sugu said, "A headless man appeared." John only felt a hand grabbing his heart. He could hardly breathe, and his whole body felt like falling into an ice cave. Quincy raised his hand. "Obviously we are just classmates, why does the Admiral know so much details?" Sugu was expressionless and didn't know how to answer. He thought for a while and said, "I listened to the report afterwards. If it were me, I would just kick it while flying, and I actually wanted to steal resources. Sugu wanted to vomit. Quincy, your focus shouldn't be here. New Orleans stroked Quincy's hair and a faint voice sounded, Akin, listen to the story and listen to what the admiral said. Sugu said, there is no timid person who can become an admiral. John calmly wanted to see what the headless man was doing, but the headless man was just looking for something. But within a few minutes, John heard the voice rang out. Head, my head, where are you? Curiosity killed the cat. John did not die. After all, no matter how bold he was, he did not dare to speak out. The headless man was still very scary. In short, he found us the next day. Of course no one believed such a ridiculous story. But John, we made a promise, so we all agreed to go to the warehouse to see it in the evening. That night, we went to the warehouse, but we didn't see anything. We didn't see anything, but things didn't end like this. The main reason was that from time to time in the college at night, someone saw a headless person wandering around. Headless people were lying on the grass looking for it, and headless people were looking for it in the bushes. One classmate even heard a sound. Hello, I can't find it. Did you see a head? Quincy pointed at his sister, Headless Senior New Orleans. Sugu's expression did not change at all. This matter caused a lot of commotion, and finally the instructor was dispatched, and it seemed that something else was discovered. Anyway, the instructor told us the next day that you don't have to worry about this matter, the headless man will not hurt you. We insisted on asking, and the instructor finally said. She said the USS Pittsburgh, the Baltimore-class heavy cruiser USS Pittsburgh. In fact, Xiao Chen successfully built the USS Pittsburgh. But the USS Pittsburgh had no head, so she was unwilling to see the admiral and stayed at the academy. Look inside. Okay, everyone is finally at ease, as long as it's not a ghost. I graduated from the college relatively early and later returned to the college. I happened to see Xiao Chen and asked him how the Pittsburgh was. He shook his head at me. I found other classmates and they said that there had never been a Pittsburgh. They all said that the instructor just said that to reassure us. Later I returned to the town guard house, and then I came here. No one knows the truth of this matter yet. The surrounding air felt a little cold for a while, but Quincy raised his hand. Why does the Pittsburgh have no head? Sugu explained, you are all ship girls, so you should all know that. Ship girls come from the memory and history of steel, and from everyone's expectations. The Tirpitz used to stay in the port, and the past crew imagined her as a homebody. Now that she has become a ship's wife, she happens to be a homebody. The Lexington once provided power to an entire city. In everyone's mind, she was a gentle lady, and she still is now. Historically, the heavy cruiser USS Pittsburgh had its bow blown off by a typhoon, but the segmented sealed cabin ensured that the remaining hull would not sink and could continue to run. It's a bit funny. The broken bow was able to float on its own because it was well sealed. After the typhoon ended, it was towed back to the port with a cable. It is said that the ship's ship, the Pittsburgh, had no head when it woke up. It will only appear in front of the admiral if the head is found. Why not Sister New Orleans? New Orleans hit Quincy on the head. Aquin, what are you talking about? Quincy handed Sugu a croissant. She tilted her head and said, I know Baltimore, but the Baltimore-class Pittsburgh has never appeared. Admiral, don't lie to me. Sugu took a bite of the bread and said, actually, we don't know the truth about this matter, the headless horseman, the ghost, the Pittsburgh, and we probably won't know in the future. Speaking of which, there is another story, which happened in old campus. I'll tell you what you want to hear. There were timid people among the little Lolita, and they trembled. Let's tell the original story. I want to hear how Hood retrieved the ginger and fish cakes. I don't know who the god of war has destroyed. Fortress G is it so cute? I'm just telling you, if Psyche is really that cute, okay, since you want to hear the original story, I don't mind. Sugu took a breath and organized his speech. The person standing in front of Hood at this time is called Suk Bader, and she also has a sister named Odin. New Orleans is content, if only it were not itself the protagonist of the story. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 680. The exhaust fan was spinning, incandescent light was shining from the ceiling, and Sugu was preparing dinner in the kitchen. Holding the ingredients with his left hand and holding the knife in his right hand, he moved quickly. Cut the pork into minced meat, cut the carrots into shreds, mash the garlic with a knife, and then chop into fine pieces. The story of Hood and Veneto was almost finished in the afternoon, and gradually into the evening, it was time to prepare dinner. Although she is not her own little Lolita, Sukong warmly invited everyone to eat at home, but unfortunately they were unwilling to leave. With a reputation as a British ship, even though she is a decathlete maid, her dessert skills are excellent, and her cooking skills are only average. It can be said that her only shortcomings are the two girls, the kitchen goddess and Mahan, don't count on them anymore, so just don't cause trouble. In the guarding mansion, I was looking for Yuxian from time to time. Over time, Sugu's cooking skills have improved to a higher level than before. In fact, he has been preparing dinner these days, and today is no exception. Everyone is used to it. Quincy doesn't care about anything, she just eats ready-made food. Seeing the Admiral take action, New Orleans wanted to help, but her skills were not of much use for Chinese food. After finally preparing all the ingredients, Sugu smiled and showed off, "Quincy, how are my knife skills?" "It's amazing." Quincy stood beside him with his hands behind his back, a surprised expression on his face. Sugu was satisfied, "It's a piece of cake." "What is this going to do?" After washing the grease off his hands, Sugu said, "Shredded fish-flavored pork, my specialty." Quincy took a tomato and said, "What do you do with this?" "Tomato scrambled eggs." Compared to the past, Sugu now knows a lot more dishes. "I originally wanted to show off in front of New Orleans and Quincy, but I thought it would be better to play it safe, and there was no time. Tomato scrambled eggs are very familiar and there will definitely be no problems. I've eaten as a ship girl, you only need to use your strength and don't need to worry too much about money." Noticing that Quincy picked up the tomatoes and didn't put them down, Sugu grinned, "I know you've eaten it, it's a very ordinary home-cooked meal, but you've already eaten 3 tomatoes, and you haven't bought a few in total. You can eat it again if you do, you won't be able to cook." It was obvious that Quincy didn't go into the kitchen just to admire the cooking skills, but because he was hungry was the main purpose. "Tomatoes are delicious." Quincy angrily took back the hand that had been put to her mouth, finally put down the only tomato, and then she looked to the side again. "With so many people in the family, I would rather have more than less. It is impossible to just prepare these dishes. I also bought a lot of extra cooked food, such as roast duck, barbecued pork, and a lot of pig head meat." From the corner of Sugu's eye, he saw Quincy twisting a little barbecued pork, but he didn't say anything. He saw Quincy starting to eat roast duck again, but he still didn't speak. When the girl was quite unconscious and specialized in tearing the fragrant and crispy duck skin, she finally couldn't help but speak. "Quincy, pay attention." Oh, however, there was no trace of shame on Quincy's face, and he didn't stop moving. He was still picking and choosing. "Stop eating secretly," Sugu thought to himself. Should he say it clearly? Oh, Quincy pretended to be stupid. Unable to bear it, Sugu shouted, "New Orleans, take your sister away from the kitchen." "Akin," New Orleans' voice rang, and the girl hurried in. Don't disturb Admiral, let's go. It's terrible for an admiral to be angry. Be careful as he dismantles your equipment and puts you in a dark room. New Orleans scares people like it's a child. Sugu really can't complain. You're exaggerating. Quincy grabbed the hem of Sugu's clothes and said, Admiral, don't dislike Quincy. Quincy will be obedient. Quincy is hungry. Seeing the girl's jewel-like eyes blinking, Sugu felt guilty and almost softened his heart. Silly Quincy, Quincy Fish, idiot, Quincy has many nicknames. Quincy eats leeks and tears green leaves without knowing the truth. Quincy's stupidity is reflected too much in games and fanart. In fact, Sugu had heard Helena say a long time ago that the idiot Quincy was definitely not stupid, and was not a mentally retarded person with a defective mind. She knows a lot of things, knows a lot of knowledge, and is quite good at fighting. She will never be sloppy or dirty, but she will always be a bright and lovely girl. All in all, from all aspects, Quincy has mastered all the knowledge that a normal person should master. If you have to call me an idiot, a serious idiot like the three Slay idiots would naturally do many unbelievable idiot things. But it's not really stupid, and occasionally it makes people doubt whether he is wise or foolish. When it was completely dark, Sugu put all the food on the table. He said in a funny voice, Your admiral has taken action, you are not allowed to eat it, and you are not allowed to say it is not delicious. There is nothing special about eating. Quincy is really good at eating. However, Sugu and Akagi have been at the same table many times, so this is just a trivial matter. Quincy has reached the pinnacle of stupidity, and Akagi has no enemies when it comes to foodies. After dinner, it was all up to Sheng Sheng to clean up the dishes. She was very good at doing this kind of thing. Sister, I'm taking a shower, please rub my back when performing in various places. You can't say that you're living under the stars and sleeping in the open air, but you can still say that after working hard for many days, you have to take a good bath when you get home. Do it yourself, just like a child. Admiral, rub my back, Quincy said unceremoniously. No, the impact is not good. Sugu saw New Orleans staring at him closely. Don't look at me like that, I won't agree. Is it just because of the bad influence? New Orleans said earnestly, Admiral, if you break the law by attacking an idiot, the military police will cause trouble. Mahan lay on the sofa, lifted up his clothes and touched his belly. Sister New Orleans, do you also admit that Quincy is a fool? Kun is naive. Naive. Mayan's words were irritating. Is it so difficult to admit it honestly? New Orleans ignored Mahan. She sat upright and said, I didn't expect that the Admiral's skills were good. Sugu explained, my teacher is Yuxian. Teacher-student love. Oh. Mahan took Sugu's fist. Girl, do you dare to make a fuss? New Orleans didn't care so much. She was only worried about her sister's image, so she took steps back to make progress. Akin looks ugly when he eats. It's okay, Akagi's food is not better than hers. New Orleans still understood the situation in the town hall. She thought about it and said, Akagi is very good at eating, but her eating skills are very good. It's not like Akin who robs things. Sugu nodded. Akagi did eat well. He ate a lot and ate quickly, but he didn't feel like he was gobbling it up at all. However, the latter point is open to discussion. He said, the Akagi Club took away the chicken legs and wings that should have been left for the little girl as if nothing had happened, and they had no shame. Speaking of which, if Akagi and Quincy are put together, who will eat whom? New Orleans said, Admiral, don't dislike Akin. How could I dislike her? Quincy is really cute, and her idiot character makes her even cuter. New Orleans hesitated to speak. Admiral, it is really illegal to attack an idiot. New Orleans, that's enough. Oh, New Orleans knew very well what kind of character her admiral had, and she didn't feel at ease at all. After suppressing his complaints, Sugu said, New Orleans, how about you being an idol outside? Actually, I want to join the fighting team like Colorado and the others. Akin must be an idol. The combat effectiveness of heavy cruisers is much weaker than that of battleships, and they have no anti-submarine capabilities at all when escorting. Since deep-sea destroyers are not very powerful at evasion, it is difficult for them to take advantage of their ability to deal with destroyers. However, they still have enough lethality in night battles, and they eat less. To be honest, compared to ordinary heavy cruisers, they have a high level of training, are fully strengthened, and have excellent equipment. It is not difficult to join the battle group and shine. He is very concerned about Quincy, and his attention is only lower than that of Colorado. Advisor Sue said, I heard the kitchen goddess say that you are very popular here at the headquarters, and Quincy sings very well. Akin is out of tune every time New Orleans covered her face and burst into tears. Akin is a funny character. She is not suitable for singing at all. Everyone just sees her as interesting. Taking care of my sister all the time is already tiring. Beside the Admiral, New Orleans finally couldn't help but burst out. She began to complain and vomit her bitterness. Akin doesn't know what politeness is. When others help her, she rarely says thank you, even if others need her help, she never refuses, and she never asks others to thank her. Akin couldn't tell what the occasion was, and he didn't know how to talk at all. New Orleans shed more tears. Maryland didn't come back from the attack for a long time, and everyone guessed what happened. Only she said that Maryland likes to fight, and the more he fights, the worse he gets. Crazy, maybe it sank outside. In fact, she had no malice, no curse, she was just guessing, but she just didn't know how to talk properly. Later, when Maryland came back, Akin was beaten. She doesn't know how to be polite at all. Our neighbor Zi Wifeng came back with some snacks, and Quincy saw it and wanted to eat. She is always hungry and wants to eat everything she sees. Zi Wifeng asked her politely if she wanted to eat some, and Quincy immediately he nodded. Wifeng asked again if it was enough, and Akin shook his head and said it was not enough. Then, Akin ate all the snacks. Once she was playing with a little girl and she was bullied for some reason. She didn't know how to be ashamed or embarrassed, so she actually ran to complain to the adults. If she was bullied, just bully her. It wasn't a big deal anyway. With the little girl, when a girl plays, it doesn't matter whether she wins or loses, it's very embarrassing. Okay. New Orleans' voice became aggrieved. We went to a performance, and one time someone gave her a bouquet of flowers. Akin actually asked her if it was delicious. She ate a flower, and then said it was not delicious, so she might as well give her some snacks. I asked her why she wanted to eat flowers, and she said they looked delicious, but the person who gave her flowers originally gave her snacks every time. Thinking of the scene in the afternoon again, New Orleans still felt embarrassed. She covered her forehead. We came back in the afternoon. On the pier, Akin saw a puppy that she wanted to raise. Others didn't mind giving it to her. She actually did it in front of others. He said that when the puppies grow up and they don't want to keep them anymore, they will make them into dog meat stew. Only now do I remember their expressions, I don't want to live anymore. After hearing what happened, Sugu had to stand up and defend Quincy. I don't want to raise him and eat him. There's nothing wrong with him. Why is there nothing wrong? I remember the puppy my family had when I was a kid. It was a native dog that my dad brought back from the brick factory. I still remember the name. Every time after eating, he liked to run from the front door to the back, so we called him Xiao Biao. Native dogs are very cute when they are young, but they lose their appearance completely when they grow up. It was thin, ate a lot, and had a big belly. When it wagged its tail, its belly waggled harder than the tail. Then it got sick for some reason. It seemed like pneumonia. Anyway, it died. I wanted to bury it, but my dad I didn't agree with it, so I stir-fried the dog meat. I didn't want to eat it at first, haha, the dog meat was so fragrant. I took one bite and couldn't stop using my chopsticks. Admiral, you have no feelings at all. There should still be some emotion, otherwise I wouldn't still remember it now. Do this to dogs, do this to people. New Orleans didn't finish her sentence. She stopped when she thought of something and just said, no conscience. We are like that in the countryside, dogs are just dogs. In fact, when we were alive, we treated them very well, including liver, pork, popsicles, and chocolate. Now we know that chocolate is not good for dogs, but it is not pure dark chocolate. We have never abused it. It is better to say that it is very good. At most, it will die and eat meat. Mahan is obviously a person with no conscience. It would be better to say that the ship girl follows the admiral's character. She said, I think it's okay, and dog meat is delicious. New Orleans stretched out his hands and hugged one knee. You two are foodies. Sugu was not ashamed but proud. Forget it, I won't tell you any more. We have different values. But from this point of view, Akin doesn't care about the occasion at all. How could he say it face to face? Sugu nodded, that's true. It's okay to talk behind your back. And I promised beforehand that I would take good care of him and not eat him afterwards. The Shiba Inu should be quite expensive. New Orleans continued to ramble until Quincy came out of the bathroom, and she didn't stop. Then when she saw Quincy wearing a white pajama with many black spots on it, she screamed, Aquin, why did you come out in pajamas? I won't go out at night. I don't want to change clothes. Quincy didn't care at all. I didn't even dry my hair. It's been well wiped. Quincy is not lazy, but she is stupid. Obviously already used to his sister's behavior, New Orleans sighed and pulled Quincy into the bathroom again to find a dry towel. After working hard for a while, it's finally done. Quincy returned to the living room, and New Orleans went back to the room to get clothes and prepare to take a shower. Thinking of something else, she returned to the living room holding her clothes. Admiral, I'm going to take a shower, please don't bully Akin. Sugu thought to himself, I thought you wanted to invite me to wash together. It turns out that for this question, he waved his hand and said seriously, don't worry. Don't worry. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 681. New Orleans raised her head under the shower head, the shower water soaking her short hair and cheeks. Turning off the shower head, she applied shampoo to her hair, then inserted her fingers into her hair and rubbed it slowly. Her slow movements did not mean that she was orderly. Judging from her expression, it was mainly because she was absent-minded. I don't know what will happen in the living room. Without me by my side, and my sister Quincy is a bit stupid, she will do something annoying. Forget about outsiders, the Admiral is someone you want to live with for the rest of your life. After rubbing it, New Orleans turned the shower head back on to rinse away the foam, and then picked up the soap. The kitchen goddess looks girlish, and she never does any mischief. The reputation is completely trustworthy, and the head maid will never treat anyone differently in the town hall. Of course, the exception is the treatment of the Admiral as the master and husband. There is no need to pay too much attention to the character of Mayan's children. Then there is only one person left in the end. Will the Admiral bully Quincy? Rubbing his neck, his hands crossed his chest again. New Orleans thought to herself that as a ship girl, she shouldn't talk about the Admiral behind his back. He disappeared and came back. Now the Admiral will cook dinner for everyone. He is not the same as before, working as a hands-off shopkeeper all day long and not seeing him twice a day. In addition, I learned from Shenshen's words that her personality is much better than before. It's just that Shenshen is the head maid and a wedding ship, so there must be a lot of moisture in her words. After rinsing away the foam all over his body, He originally started to fill the bathtub with water as soon as he entered the bathroom. At that moment, New Orleans just lay down in the bathtub. I heard from Mahan that the Admiral married South Dakota and gave him a ring. The little fat guy won't let it go. Quincy is so cute and only wearing pajamas with nothing underneath. Our Admiral is an irresponsible pervert. Judging from what he did to Helena and even the Archer fish, there is no doubt. Then would he do anything to Quincy while he was bathing, such as eating Quincy's tofu? New Orleans suddenly covered his mouth, thinking that Quincy would never resist the Admiral, and the Admiral, who was too pushy, would become so animalistic that he would bring Quincy into the room and push him down. No, if you want to do those things, you must first give the ring. Sure enough, he should just wash up and run out, but that would be too distrustful of the Admiral. The Admiral would definitely not do such a thing. At most, he would bully. Bullying would not do, he agreed. New Orleans hit his head, thinking that he was really worried, but he didn't know what to do. Her body slid into the bathtub little by little. The water reached her chin, nose, and forehead. In the end, only her short green hair was left floating like seaweed. The goddess of the kitchen was curled up on the side chair, holding a notebook in her hand, which contained many supplies. She works in the logistics team. Since she has been busy with handovers recently, she does not forget to work at home. Sheng Sheng was first busy clearing away the dishes, and then busy washing the dishes in the kitchen. I just returned to the living room and sat quietly. When in maid uniform, she is a steady head maid. Porn schoolboy Mahan, she is holding a comic book. Leaning on the sofa, Sugu was looking at Quincy. He has no idea what New Orleans is thinking, otherwise he would have complained, but it's not that bad. If she really had nothing to fear, Lexington would never object to having a harem as long as she could be the eldest wife. How can I only have 10 wedding ships? There are at least dozens of people, including you in New Orleans, and you can't even think of escaping. So beautiful and cute, even if we are really headless seniors, we still can't accept this. The doc should be on the neck. It's a bit cruel to say it clearly, good looks are an advantage. If a girl looks ugly, people call her a tomboy. If she looks pretty, people call her a tomboy. If you are ugly, ugly people tend to make mischief. If you are beautiful, people say you are weird. Being ugly is a sign of dementia. Being pretty and cute like Quincy is a sign of being cute. Even if you do stupid things, you won't get angry at all. When it came to bullying Quincy, Sugu thought about it, and it was very interesting to think about it. For example, he ate the rice dumplings and left the rice dumpling leaves to Quincy. Another example is feeding Quincy grass and making a Quincy lawnmower. But if it's just a picture, it doesn't matter how you prank it. But when a living person is in front of him, it is impossible to bully him. The most he can do is tease him. Why isn't Quincy with Aoba? It is obvious that Quincy is particularly unhappy with Aoba. I don't want to be with her, Aoba mistress. King Yi Ziasan, Quincy Baichi. I'm not Baichi. Everyone in the governor's office said that your singing is not as good as King Yi's, and neither of you can compare to Prince Eugen. She is the most powerful idol. Your sister just said that you always sing out of tune and that you are a funny character. Sugu. After all, if there is a Canmo competition, he will definitely support Quincy. The girl is too cute, not as good as Aoba or Prince Eugen. Quincy explained, but I am very popular. Someone recognized me at the pier today. She is a fan of mine and wants to give me the puppy. Sugu sneered and said, Alaska guitar, Guam keyboard player, Royal Oak clarinet, unicorn harp. Quincy, what instruments do you play? Quincy scratched his hair and his expression became confused. I don't know anything. Hey, I don't know anything. King Yi has a piece of clothing, it's called the Red and White Idol Battle. I set up a ring on the idol stage to challenge you, come and accept my challenge. The goal is to defeat Quincy. Then Quincy's performance will be what clothes? I have a lot of clothes. Quincy counted on his fingers. There are indeed only a few clothes to change in the game, but now you can change your clothes any way you want, and you can change your hairstyle any way you want. Everyone in the garrison has a lot of clothes, and they change one outfit every day without wearing the same one for many days. But Quincy, none of your clothes were given by the Admiral, Mahan said. For the ship girl, no matter how many clothes she buys, they are not as special as the clothes given by the Admiral. Admiral is partial, King Yi has it, and I want it too. Quincy puffed up his cheeks angrily, making people want to give him a good pat. In the heavy cruiser, Prince Eugen will protect people, Wichita has super firepower, and Quincy, you seem to be unable to do anything. Quincy put her hands on her hips and said proudly, anyway, I'm better than my sister. Seeing Quincy holding his face with an ovo expression on his face, which was so funny, Sugu said on a whim, Quincy, can you please read it? Sugu made a move, Quincy, follow me, spread your hands like this, and then, I feel so pitiful when I see it. I don't know what you're talking about, but it feels great. Blush here, why show this to Quincy? As long as you are happy. Quincy has never seen anyone so brazen. A ship like yours can survive 2 episodes at most. A ship like me can survive 1 episode. My sister New Orleans can survive 3 episodes. These words were spoken by Sugu without feeling at all. It's interesting that Quincy said it. Quincy was so fun and Sugu had a great time. Mahan sat nearby and occasionally interrupted, but she didn't know when she found an iron box. Open it and you will find chocolate, halva, and wafers inside. She brought chocolates to Sugu, but had no intention of sharing them with Quincy. Quincy was very proactive. She leaned over and said, I want to eat. Mahan picked up a piece of halva, call me sister and I'll give it to you. What is moral integrity? Can you eat it? There was no rhythm at all, it was just a sister. Quincy did not hesitate to call her sister. She quickly finished the halva, and then approached Mahan to express that she still wanted to eat. Mahan said, then I'll just rub my face. With Quincy holding halva in one hand and chocolate in the other, Mahan stretched out his hands to grab both sides of her face and kneaded them. Admiral, do you want to touch it? It feels so good and so thick-skinned. Look, it has turned into a bun. Mahan rubbed it for a long time, and Quincy made a strange sound because his cheeks were being pulled on both sides. If New Orleans were here, she would definitely be able to hear what her sister was saying, stop rubbing, that's enough, I want to eat. Mahan finally let go of his hand. Quincy rubbed her face. She looked at Sugu and said, Admiral, if you want to rub it, give Quincy something delicious to eat. I won't need, I have a bag of biscuits in my room and an unopened bag of potato chips. In a hurry, Sugu went back to the room and ran out again. In front of him, he placed biscuits, potato chips, and a bag of uneaten pickled peppers and radishes. Quincy's eyes suddenly lit up and he moved closer to Sugu, then rub it. I originally wanted to refuse, but I saw that Quincy has an oval face, which gives people a round and fleshy look. Anyway, he is very cute. I thought that it wouldn't matter if I rubbed my face as my ship girl anyway. Finally Sugu stretched out his hand tremblingly and put it on Quincy's face. Knead it, pinch it, pull it, it feels so good. If you rub little Loli's face or Bazai's face on weekdays, everyone will resist. Quincy's face is no worse than anyone else's, and his hand feels just right but doesn't resist. It's perfect. Reluctantly, he let go and handed the biscuit to Quincy. Seeing the girl finishing it in a few seconds, Sugu looked at the rice peppers in the pickled pepper glass. He thought for a long time. He usually bullies people in the garrison. Like bullying Bazai, hugging Xiaozai and laughing at her as a dead house, a fat house, a lazy house, and a useless house. It's also fun to bully Kent and take away her big tiger. However, no matter what you do, going too far is bad. Harmless bullying, done only if you like it, will not hurt people's hearts, and can also enhance feelings. I thought it shouldn't matter. Chili peppers are not like leaves or grass that can't be eaten at all. Just drink some water. Making up his mind, Sugu poked the chili pepper with a bamboo skewer and said, "Quincy, try this." Quincy ate it and showed an ugly expression, "It's so spicy and tastes bad." Sugu said seriously, "Eat something spicy and you'll get used to it later. It's delicious, really. I won't lie to you. It's still very spicy and unpalatable." After eating another one, Quincy's face became even rounder. Is bullying Quincy that fun? Sugu thought to himself, it would be so fun to bully Quincy. Not long after, until a cough sounded, Sugu turned his head and saw New Orleans wiping his short green hair with a towel. Quincy was holding many snacks, and New Orleans moved a chair to sit opposite Sugu. "I've told the Admiral, please promise, you won't bully Akin." "Anyone can bully Akin. You are Akin's Admiral. How can you bully her? You actually fed Akin chili peppers. Akin doesn't like chili peppers. She is a beautiful, caring, and kind-hearted girl from New Orleans, but she is a very protective sister who can turn into a demon when necessary. Anyone who bullies Quincy will be met with crazy revenge. It's a bit exaggerated." In short, even as an admiral, New Orleans did not hesitate to teach him a lesson. After finally waiting for New Orleans to finish, Gugu asked curiously, "Quincy is so greedy and a fool. Will he be bullied and deceived outside?" New Orleans said, "Akin is greedy, but she eats everything no matter who gives her. And she is a ship girl, so drugs and sleeping pills are of no use to her. And I am always with her, as long as Akin is safe here. There will always be a time to separate." Quincy had finished eating the potato chips, and she said, "One time I accidentally got separated from my sister outside and couldn't find her. Some people thought that Quincy was stupid, so they lied to Quincy and told her where her sister was. But Quincy 11 could tell at a glance that they were thinking something bad, so he didn't follow them. They wanted to do something, so I beat them all away. After waiting for a long time, my sister was finally found." Sugu looked at Quincy and asked, "Quincy, you don't eat spicy food. Why didn't you spit out the chili pepper just now, and then you still ate it?" Quincy showed a bright smile, which was so dazzling. "Stinky tofu is smelly, durian is smelly, and bean juice is smelly, but they are all good things. Tea is bitter, coffee is bitter, and Quincy can't drink it, but many people like it. They are all good things. The things given by my sister and the things given by the Admiral must be good things. If they are not delicious, it must be because Quincy won't eat them. We can't live up to our good intentions. Quincy is stupid and doesn't understand so many things. But Quincy knows that a sister, as well as an admiral, will take good care of Quincy and will not bully Quincy. Even if Quincy is beaten, Quincy definitely deserves it. Because I can't always remember things. As a ship girl, she can have a keen insight into people's hearts and will not be easily deceived. If a ship girl is cheated, she must be willing to be cheated." Quincy spoke slowly, as if racking his brains. Seeing the innocent expression on the girl's face, Sugu felt inexplicably guilty. He had done something very bad. "Sorry, Quincy. Sorry, Quincy. Sorry, Quincy." Sugu said firmly, "Quincy, don't worry and leave it to the Admiral. As long as the Admiral is here, no one can bully you, no one. If anyone wants to bully you, just step over my body." Quincy didn't feel anything. She was very calm. She just said, "Quincy knows, Quincy has always known." Sugu became more and more guilty. "Sorry, Quincy. Sorry, Quincy."